Greetings, everyone. My name's Joshua B. ALAFIA, and I'm really honored and happy to be with you all today. I'm very much honored to be a part of this course called Radical Presence. I really do think of this practice as radical. And if you take it back, if you take Buddhism back to Siddhartha Gautama and his wife Yasodhara, and look at what radicals they were. Just take a moment and just picture these teenagers who had the ambition of completely rearranging society in a more equal way, where there isn't a caste system, where it was a society propelled by our own spiritual development and our own awakening and seeing things clearly. It's very radical. So today I'm going to be talking about love. And even that word, just notice how that word landed in your body when I said love. It's funny, it's a word that in English, it's been so trivialized. I just noticed there was a fast food chain that, like, their new motto, or maybe it's been for a couple of years, is "I'm loving it." Just like it's kind of like liking. I'd like to quote Dr. Martin Luther King. "Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love." So the love I'm speaking of is not the love that we fall into, but the love that we stand in, a love that's supported, a love that really is fortified by the awakening of this sense of interbeing that is cultivated with our practice. It's the sense of oneness. And even the word oneness you may feel possibly some aversion to, or possibly some like it's very abstract concept. It's one that's very difficult to practice. It involves a certain degree of equanimity, which is really the fruit of our practice. It's really, when we look at equanimity, it's the 10th perfection. It's the 7th awakening factor. It's always the end of the line, the 4th Brahmavihara. It's kind of the peak or the culmination of the practices that support it, or that precede it in all the Buddhist lists. So this equanimity, this feeling of unity, that I can best show an example of my son before he really developed attachment. He looked at everything with this loving gaze that was equanimous, whether it be one of his parents or an inanimate object, a plant, one of the cats, a stranger. Everything was given this wonder, this equanimous, friendly presence. So this love that is not sentimental, this love that is unconditional, this love that is an expression of our unity, I think about the Zulu phrase and how it beautifully expresses this in Ubuntu, I am that you are, or the Sanskrit Namaste, the divine in me honors and bows to the divine in you. This interbeing, this fruit of our practice. So, how do we stand in that? How do we be about that in this society and culture of where it's really not cool to be loving? It's cool to be aversive. You know, we live in a time where the commitment involved in the word love arouses a lot of aversion. You know, maybe you've experienced in your dating, you know, being with someone who had a hard time saying I love you. You know, had a really hard time. In fact, it was degrees of like. It was always like, oh, I really like you, you know. And how that felt. That feeling of not being able to really be received and really be reflected and have your feelings reciprocated. So it's no wonder, you know, that there's, in romantic love, there's all this aversion that is generated because it requires such a degree of vulnerability. A vulnerability that is difficult and requires courage. So, how do we reach this? You know, how does this love manifest, this unconditional love? Well, the Buddha and his wife Yasodhara, when they speak of this cultivation, the word Bhavana, training, meditation, cultivation, and it's a word that's like so earthy because it's really using that agrarian term of cultivation, of sowing the soil, planting the seeds, nurturing life, nurturing this living state of being. Coming back to just the awakening of letting go of a train of thought, coming back to the letting go of a breath, the presence of being in the body, the extending to another being, this extension of kindness, coming back to that awakening. So I'm going to suspend the practice, talking more about the practice by first looking also at courage. So when I'm speaking of courage, I'm speaking in the sense of energy, tenaciousness, persistent energy, and faith. So it's Virya and Saddha in Pali. When we look at Virya, this effort, this courageous or heroic effort that is required to walk this path, it's split into 3 parts. The first component is development of character. It's also about cultivating the courage and the will to walk this path and stay focused and persist through the obstacles of the 5 hindrances of lust, ill will, sloth, torpor, and doubt. So it's like giving up bad habits, just having this initial resolve to let go of things that are blocking our development, giving up excuses, you know. The second part is the spiritual training, this cultivation, this having this energized walk toward, movement toward our own Dhammoja, our own propensity towards awakening. So it's not depending solely on our teacher, the Sangha, our community. It's this this part of ourselves that's activated and resolved. And the third part of Virya is the practice for the benefit of others. So again, it's realizing this unconditional love for oneself and others by having that resolve to practice, to benefit all beings without exception. And Saddha, the Pali word often translated as faith, but it also can mean confidence, trust, fidelity. So having confidence in the practice. So in my own life, my early experiences with courage, you know, there's all different kinds of courage. There's courage with danger. I remember being 13 years old and riding a scooter with that was like it was more powerful than a moped, but I had a moped license, and you know, I was with my friends who were very rowdy. We went to this party we weren't invited to, and you know, the parent called the police because one of my friends got into it with him. And quickly they arrived, and I had my two friends on the back of my scooter, and I pulled up into a cul-de-sac. This is in Texas, Austin, Texas. And I told them to just let me handle the police and to run, you know, thinking that it'd be better not to be caught with these two guys on the back because that's against the law too. And two police cars pulled up. And so 4 police got out, and they were treating me like I was had done something very serious. And I thought that the best thing to do would probably just to not give them my license and just to say that I forgot it at home. So when they said, "Show me your license and registration," at first I said, "Well, I forgot, I don't have it." And one of them said, "Well, what's that in your pocket, boy?" Because he's referring to my front pocket. And so I reached for it, and as I reached for it, one of the policemen put a gun to my head. And it was real pivoting, it was amazing, incredible moment in my life, because I was in a stage of rejecting my hippie parents' spirituality and even the concept of the divine. I was really really trying to separate from that and not believing in anything that wasn't concrete, really. But as I felt that cold steel on my head, I had this sense of protection. And my heart had been, you know, up, my heart rate up, and all of a sudden I just relaxed. And I turned right around to the policeman that had his gun on me, and I handed him my wallet. And it was an awkward thing for him. He realized I wasn't reaching for a gun or whatever. He holstered the gun, he received the wallet, and it was, you know, it's awkward. And the police kind of gathered around him as he opened it, found my license. And I felt this great relief and this great courage this subsiding of fear, even as I faced my own mortality. And I felt like there was something greater, and that I was a part of something greater. I felt that great spirit that the Buddha and indigenous folks in these Americas love to use that phrase, the great spirit. I felt a part of it.